So first point, and I know this is quite busy, and some of you may have been through this process before and might have completed the assessment. What we wanted to do with this slide, and I appreciate it's busy, it's just really get to the point of the problem, the shared problem that we're trying to solve. So fundamentally, all we're trying to do at MethodGrid is help reduce the cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent ways of working, and which impacts either the way you deliver services or the way that you deliver projects. I'd say the pain points that we've got from client feedback, the pain points that we help them solve, are the kind of 1 to 8 across the row there. I won't go into all of them, probably just call out the key ones. But I think the pain symptoms they've expressed is, look, they recognize the way we do things in the business were inconsistent. Leading on to that is number 2, which is teams find it incredibly difficult to be collaborative, find the information they need when they need it, and there's kind of just a view that, yeah, we're actually quite ineffective, not productive, and yeah, it's a kind of reflection if we ask staff that, yeah, we're not putting the things in place that actually help them with the how and get the job done. A kind of 1 and 2 then tends to lead to 6, which is we kind of feel that teams are constantly reinventing the wheel. And it's not the kind of reinventing the wheel like driving innovation and growth. It's more just the frustration. I can't find something. I've built it myself from scratch, only to be told, oh, by the way, you should have looked here. And it's kind of the frustration of constantly feeling that teams are just reinventing the wheel rather than putting structure and making us get repeatable and faster. I think all of that, like 1, 2, and 6, leads to 7, which for staff and employees, it's actually quite a frustrating joining experience, and it takes them quite a long time to work out actually how to get up to speed and get comfortable with what's the ask and what's the way we do things around here. I'd say that's the kind of core pain symptoms, kind of just highlighted through the kind of number of assessments we've done. I'd say, yeah, 1, 2, 6, and 7 are always read in most of the organizations that we speak to. And the why so for us, and it's kind of, why does this happen? And this really helped us frame the problem for how we build MethodGrid, which the first point is clarity on what the process is. Teams need it. And essentially what we find is in some organizations it can be, well, we haven't actually quite written it down, or it goes the other way, which is we've written it all down, it's massive, it's massive SharePoint, but actually it's quite difficult for teams, and it kind of always leads to 2, which is I've written it all down, but the common phrase we get is, I think it just sits on the shelf. I don't think people actually use it, people aren't compliant with it. And I'd say universally, what we have a problem with is compliance to ways of working and building confidence that people are actually following process. I don't think there's anyone I've ever spoken to about this problem that's gone, oh yeah, no, we've got that totally in hand. There is always a massive drift problem between how work is written down or imagined versus how it's actually done in practice. So that's 2, that's compliance. The third point then is just around people, really. People are going to need a bit of confidence to work the way you want. They're going to want to make sure they understand it, because their default, if they don't feel comfortable or confident in how to do something, it's our natural reaction to kind of pull away from it, step back and be like, oh, yeah, I'm not sure. And that kind of behavior leads to them going, oh, well, I've got a template elsewhere, I'm going to use this, I'm going to be more confident doing that, rather than trying to be compliant with the ways of work that you want them to follow. So you have to kind of look at it in terms of what have you put in place that builds confidence in people to give it a go and to do the things that you want them to do in the way you want them to do it. Normally we'd say here's, look, like 1, 2, and 3 are always in your gift. Like, you can control how well the process is defined, the controls that are in place to kind of manage compliance, and you can control the level of investment that you put in people and how easy you make it for them to understand and build confidence in how they execute. But there's always kind of the fourth point, which is just there'll always be kind of audit and assurance. I think the biggest frustration we get from teams is I think I'm doing compliant, but then I've been assured and I've been told I haven't done X, haven't done Y, I haven't got this evidence, and I can't go through gate approval, or I've failed gate. And I think the biggest frustration most teams have is, look, can you just be clearer in what are the standards, what evidence do I need to provide? And in some ways, I get a bit frustrated when I get audited, because all they come and do is try and, where's X, where's Y, and I end up pointing them at different SharePoints. Where's this? So you need to look here, and it can be quite a drag on the team. So when we looked at MethodGrid, it was very much like, how do you kind of get it so that it's completely transparent about, look, this is what the standards are, this is what the evidence needs, and if you do get audited and assured, this is allowing audit and assurance to access that information without the kind of constant drag and pester. And so that, for us, frames the problem that we need to solve and the why it causes. So when we set about trying to build MethodGrid, we came up with a kind of simple concept. And the first point we recognized was, if we want teams to do something, like, these are the things that we want you to do, and the how, side by side, that is a much better experience for the human. You know, because if it's just, this is what you need to do, and the how is then scattered across different spreadsheets, different SharePoint sites, you will spend an eternity for them to try and find out how you want them to do it, rather than trying to connect those two information pieces together. So the fundamental concept of MethodGrid, the first one was to, let's merge knowledge management and project management together. The second thing we learned very quickly, and it was, you know, with initial clients like Mace and Turner & Townsend, it was very much, look, we want the ability to build our own playbooks. We have a playbook for how we deliver this type of project for this type of client. We work in highways, we work in rail, we do construction. And actually what we need is the flexibility to build different playbooks for different solutions. So very quickly we came up with the concept of playbook, and we allow clients, for them as users, to build their own playbooks in how they respond to certain scenarios and challenges. The second point is, it's probably what we're known for, is how we keep it very simple, but how we keep it focused on what the human actually needs. So we came up with a grid structure because we felt that was the most intuitive for teams, helping them navigate the end-to-end life cycle. So look, here's the stages, here's your stage gates, here's all the deliverables, here's what you need to do. And then we want to logically break that down into either different functions or different groups, just so that we can see it transparently and be very much more visual to build confidence with people, because if you can see it, it makes it a lot easier for teams to collaborate and interact with it. And that's why we came up with a grid structure. We're not trying to be a single solution. We just really want to be the veneer that basically teams use to work out how they are going to successfully navigate end-to-end capital project delivery. And so we recognize that you may have other systems involved. There may be like SharePoint or OneDrive or Teams that you want to connect MethodGrid to, and that's where you might want to store your documents. You also might have common data environments that have all of your evidence and your drawings in, so you want to be able to connect and evidence where that information is on your playbook. But I think the key thing about MethodGrid is we're trying to make it incredibly transparent about what it is you need to do and how you do it. The third point, and I'd say this is probably the kind of key thing that differentiates us and adds significant value, and it came from client feedback very early on in our kind of development days, and it was, look, teams really like the playbook. It's transparent, it's easy for them to follow, and it gives them the information they need when they need it. However, we still face this challenge where when we want to use it, and we need to tailor the playbook. We've defined what we think should happen, but in some cases, the client wants us to move things around, or we need to adjust it because we're not doing this deliverable over here. We need to move it into this stage, or in some cases, we're not even commissioned to do that stage. We're only commissioned for stages 2 and 3. Therefore, we don't need the full playbook. And that was the key bit that we focused on, is how do you allow the platform the ability so that teams can tailor the playbook in a transparent way, but allow them to take more ownership of the solution, of how we best deliver this project. And that's the bit. Sometimes it can be like, oh, well, we've written what we've done in the PMP, and this is how. But actually, what we wanted to find a way of doing is making it completely transparent, both to the team, but also potentially the client, of how you've tailored it and how you've met their requirements. So the kind of concept we came up with is you build a master playbook, and then you have the ability in the platform to clone it, and you clone it for each project. And therefore, each instance of that playbook then can be tailored, owned by the teams, adjusted, but you then have complete transparency on how they've done that. But then they use that instance to tick things off, upload the evidence, so that you address the compliance challenge. You get more confidence that your way of working has been put into implementation and the teams are following it and they're compliant with it. The kind of fourth and final point, when we made that shift from kind of knowledge into delivery, we recognized that, well, we're now sort of tracking tasks and compliance and evidence. So we had to add kind of your MI and reporting to do it. But I think the more important thing for us, what we recognized, is because we integrate knowledge and delivery and assurance as a connected solution, things like lessons learned can be somewhat different about how you deliver them. So one of the key points for R&D this year is we ingest clients' lessons learned. But rather than just sort of telling you these are the lessons about your project when you start it and is it a good time to capture it at the end, what we're actually looking at is, I know information about your project, I know information about who you are and what user you are, and actually I know what task you're about to undertake or what task you're currently ticking on the playbook. By the way, I think you need to be aware of this. So things like, you can present things like, by the way, I noticed that you're using this particular type of cable. This has failed. We'd no longer use this. By the way, please change. Or it can be as simple as, I noticed that your project might be doing this type of change. By the way, your test plan needs to include a production test, a pre-prod test. And rather than think about it as, okay, lessons or information like at set stages, the whole philosophy of Method Grid is trying to push information when it's needed, not when it's kind of just a kind of control point that you've put into the process.